Kenyans are all counting down to the status conference at the International Criminal Court set to happen on the 8th of October, which is on Wednesday. And preceding that is a special sitting at Parliament. And remember, this is a process that began way back in February of 2008, when then hardly known Luis Moreno Ocampo of the International Criminal Court said that his office had begun what he called a preliminary examination of the post-election violence in Kenya. Well, it's years since then, and Rita Tinina is standing by where President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to hold this special sitting and address members of Parliament. Now, Rita, suspicion is rife that he will be talking about the oncoming status conference, but do we know anything else with regard to this special sitting?
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Edith, from Parliament Buildings, where President Uhuru Kenyatta, as you mentioned there, is set to address a special joint sitting of the National Assembly and the Senate. Up until now, the focus of that address is still a matter of speculation. But coming just a day before his big date with judges at the International Criminal Court, the timing perhaps is quite telling. And some analysts have argued that maybe the president will touch on or entirely focus on the ICC matter and the summons by the judges that he should appear before the court on Wednesday. But Edith, it is not the first time that the president is addressing a joint sitting of the Senate and the National Assembly. He did that after the elections when he addressed the newly elected MPs and senators. He also addressed a joint sitting in March this year. That was during the State of the Nation address. And this is something that is provided for in law. The law states that the president shall address a newly elected parliament as well as address the nation through a joint sitting of parliament every year on the State of the Nation. The law also states that the president can address parliament at any other time, and this is one of those times. MPs and senators are currently on recess, so they have been recalled for that address by the president. For members of the National Assembly, it will be the second time that they are being recalled from recess. Last month, they were recalled to come and debate a report by the Defense and Foreign Relations Committee, and that was a report on the nomination of the Director General of the National Intelligence Service, as well as ambassadors and high commissioners. As I mentioned there, Edith, right now it's still a matter of speculation what the president has in store for Parliament. And even with that speculation, some MPs are saying that they will not be attending this joint sitting, assuming that the president will be talking about the Hague issue. This is even as other MPs and senators throng the Netherlands embassy here in Nairobi to try and secure visas to accompany the president if he chooses to go to the Hague. Perhaps he will be telling Parliament this afternoon if he will honor those summons, if he will not, and why, give reasons as well. Remember, the president has the support of the African Union. During a summit in Addis Ababa last year, the AU, which initially had tried to pull out of the ICC but failed to get enough support, came up with several resolutions. One of them, it wanted the case against President Uhuru Kenyatta deferred. Also in their resolutions, the AU said that no sitting head of state should appear before the International Criminal Court. And so if Uhuru chooses to go to the Hague this Wednesday, he will also make history as the first sitting head of state to appear before the International Criminal Court. Remember, his case has been delayed several times. Last month, the court postponed his case indefinitely, and during that session, that is when presiding judge Kuniko Ozaki then issued summons for Uhuru to appear before the court. His defense team applied seeking to have the president appear via a video link, but that application was dismissed by the court. So will the president be heading to the Hague this week? The ICC, it is expected it will question the president over claims that his government is withholding crucial information that is necessary for this trial. As I mentioned earlier, several members of parliament say they will not be attending the session this afternoon. We expect that the president will get here some minutes past 2:15 this afternoon. Already it has been a busy morning for the president. We are told he held talks with the National Security Council as well as the cabinet, and maybe he communicated to them the same message that he will be communicating to Parliament this afternoon, even as those MPs say they will not be attending this afternoon session. And my colleague Ian Wafula is standing by with some of those who say they will not be attending the afternoon session. And I now hand over to Ian. Ian, what are the sentiments?
Thank you very much, Rita Tinina. And just like you said, a number of members of our parliament, that is mostly from the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, the opposition, say they will not be attending this special sitting in the afternoon. Neto, it is, I'm joined by Agustino Neto, who is the NDO member of parliament. It is not every day that the president calls for a special sitting, and it is still out of speculation. We don't know what he's going to talk about. Why did you guys decide not to attend?
I am happy that you say very well that it's not every day the president calls for a sitting of parliament. There's nowhere in law that anticipates that the president should call for a sitting of parliament. The only time the president can call for a sitting of parliament is after the first general election under the constitution. That is the only time. So what is happening right now is what the president did is very unprocedural. One, Parliament is guided by something called standing orders, and the standing orders of Parliament show specifically when a special sitting can occur. And you know, special sittings do occur when, for example, Parliament is on recess. You see, if Parliament was not on recess and Parliament was doing its daily business, then it was possible for the president to come at any time. But now there's a special consideration. Parliament is on recess. What does that mean? That if at all you wanted Parliament to get back, there's a way that should have and ought to have happened, and that is by one, the leader of majority and the leader of minority consulting with the speaker, and after they consulted, they should have agreed. Once they'd agreed, the agenda for the meeting ought to have been specific. This is where the problem comes from. That one, the parliament was convened under very dubious circumstances, and two, we did not know the agenda. You know, like right now, you are going to ask me to speculate or anticipate what the president is going to talk about. That is not what the law anticipates. The law anticipates that if we are called right now, you know, remember 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Parliament was called from recess. But when Parliament was called from recess, it was a very specific agenda. It was to approve and appoint the ambassadors. That is understood, and the agenda was very specific. In fact, the standing orders 29, under which the Parliament is purportedly convened today, make it very specific that there are only special circumstances under which you can convene a special sitting of Parliament. One, if Kenya is at war, you want to extend it. If you want to impeach the president, if you want to make appointments like we did in the last week of members of ambassadors, if at all a cabinet secretary is going to be fired, those are the special circumstances under which you can then convene a special sitting of Parliament. And if you want to convene that special sitting, you must set out the agenda beforehand so that the members know what they're going to be discussing, and the standing orders say that agenda should be the only thing that is being discussed on that particular day. Right now, members have been called. We do not know what it's all about. So we do not know what the president wants, how he wants it, and that is why court said we're not going to participate in an illegality.
Thank you very much. And as Neto said, we do not know what the agenda of this meeting is, and we continue to speculate that President Uhuru Kenyatta will be addressing concerning the International Criminal Court. Back to you, Edith. We shall continue following the proceedings here, and we see what goes on. Edith?
Well, so we are just finding out from Parliament that even before the sitting commences, there's already quite a bit of controversy with members of Parliament saying that they're not going to be attending those sittings. But we have in studio John Jomuya, who is the Vice Chair of the International Commission of Jurists, who's going to help us look at this issue more analytically. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Edith.
So let's begin where Ian Wafula has left off. Agustino Neto, the Member of Parliament from Ndiwa, saying that it is unconstitutional and unprocedural what the president is doing.
That is the case indeed, because the Constitution and the standing orders are fairly clear. The Constitution says that the president has the responsibility to address Parliament at least once a year during the State of the Nation address, which he did in March, but any other time. But that any other time must be guided by the standing orders. And as Agustino Neto says, that the standing orders are clear as to how a special sitting or how Parliament may be recalled from recess as it is being now, that an agenda must be circulated. There must be agreement between the requester of the sitting, whether it's a leader of the majority or the minority, and the MPs must know what it is that they're coming to do. Right now, they're in the dark, except the fact,
yes.
Yeah.
So, as you've rightly said, everyone is in the dark, but Agustino Neto once again saying they've made a very deliberate choice to not, to quote his words directly, participate in an illegality. So what does this mean for what the president will say in Parliament today? Does it mean it will be null and void? Does it mean it will be marred by this irregularity?
I think that would be a bit speculative. I think, of course, when the head of state is addressing the legislature, one would have expected that there would have been agreement and all this would have been sorted out beforehand. But when the opposition basically is absent, that at the very least reduces the weight of what the president is going to tell Parliament, because he's just going to be speaking mainly to his party members.
Okay, and because the president has been so tight-lipped about what exactly he's going to be saying, there's a lot of speculation that it could be the ICC agenda. And if it is, do you think it will in any way impact what is going to happen at The Hague on Wednesday?
Well, I think the president has been directed to appear in the ICC in the status conference. There has been a lot of speculation and people saying, asking whether he'll go or he won't go. First of all, it should be understood that he doesn't have a choice. The president is not being asked to attend as president. He's being asked to attend as Uhuru Kenyatta in a case that concerns him that began before he became president.
Right.
So he has to go. So maybe the speculation goes on. He does want to maintain the stature of statesmanship and to explain to the country why he's going, particularly because in going, he's also reversing some of the earlier statements he has made. He once referred to the ICC as a toy for declining imperial powers.
Right.
And so I think it's not easy for a head of state just to reverse his position. So I think it's important for him to explain himself to the country.
All right, that's John Ramuya whetting our appetites with regard to this particular subject of the ICC. We will be speaking to him a bit later, just a few minutes hopefully before the president addresses that joint sitting in Parliament.